game, man, you know what I'm saying?
Black on black on black on black. Whole squad on, used to dream about that. Never let up on my grind, took no days off, what you know about that.
Hello everyone and welcome back to CHHysteria, podcast for CHH about everything CHH. I'm your host Cole.
And I'm your co-host Cooper.
And today we have a very special guest, an artist I've been listening to for a few years, part of the tribe, and he's become one of my favorites over the years. We have Mogli the Iceburg.
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It means a lot to both of us. And before we get too deep into the questions, I just want to clear up that Mogli's opinions do not reflect the opinions of all icebergs out there. So,
Important.
very important, yes. But last month you dropped your newest track, Coke in the 80s. Can you tell us a little bit about the song, like what you're talking about, maybe a little bit of story behind how that song came together?
Sure. So, I think honestly that song was just it kind of came out of just an opportunity. I was going to be out in California for a little bit, and I had a friend that was shooting some videos out there, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'd like to shoot a video for you, but I want to do like a rap song." And I was like, "Oh, fun! I've actually wanted to make like a song where I'm rapping, as opposed to like the melodic stuff for a while." So I just kind of made a fun little song. You know, the whole thing is a pun. You know, he was shooting me a bunch of locations for this video, and like all the locations looked like these super like Narcos-esque things. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll be a Christian rapper that makes a Colombian cocaine kingpin pun, and just make that the kind of like a tongue-in-cheek concept for the whole.
Nice, yeah. I really like the music videos. Kind of, I don't know what it is about it, but it's kind of addicting to watch. I feel like the shots were really well done, and yeah, the sound was surprising to me because I think you tweeted about it before it came out, but I didn't see it. But I thought like it was gonna be more like your rock rap blend that you have been doing for a while, but then you kind of surprised it with like just rap. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I know you've been working on a new project, so. Can we expect songs like Coke in the 80s on the project? I mean, I don't know how much you can say, but like, or is it mostly the rap rock blend?
So really on my next project, what I'm going to be doing is kind of like reinforcing the idea that I like a lot of different music and I make music for a lot of different people. And especially, you know, there are people that have discovered my music at different points in time. And you know, there are people that discovered me on like my Tumultu album that don't really rock with some of the melodic, more rock inspired things I'm doing now, and vice versa. And then at the same time to that, like there are all types of stuff that I really love listening to that I'd like to try my hand in. You know, I just always want to make music that is what I like to listen to. And so I kind of just want to preface with everybody, like, you might not like everything, but you'll like something on the next project.
Right. Right. That actually goes really well into my next question because back in November, you had a few tweets that caught my eye. The first one was you tweeted, "When my new album drops, people either think I'm a genius or a psychopath with very little in between," which is very intriguing. And then, oops, I clicked on the same one. And then you also said, "I can't promise you'll like all my new music, but I can guarantee you'll find it interesting." So that kind of exactly what you just said, but are you willing to expand a little bit on what you meant by the genius psychopath thing?
Well, so I think at this point for me, the my worst fear is just making music that is just like very non-remarkable or something that like you just listen to and be like, oh, that's a nice song. Like I would much rather just take a risk doing something that some people will either think is like super unique and crazy, or other people will remember for being just like making their ears bleed. You know, like if it's stylistically, if I can provoke a reaction, if I can just get something out of you, that is better to me than just making like a milquetoast kind of track that's just there. So I'm going to be doing that more and more. Like I'm gonna be taking some risks that are really kind of more than I've ever done, and just kind of like taking an idea and just going to the extreme with it. So that's what to expect.
Right. No, that's cool. I'm really excited to hear all those tracks because I feel like over the past few years, specifically like since Sad People Make Dope Music, you've kind of like made this new rock rap sound that I don't think I've heard before, and it's really unique and I love it. So I'm just excited to see what you do with it next and what else you dabble in. I'm super excited. But
Dope, man. Well, I'll have to send you an early preview when I get a little bit closer to ready to go.
oh man, I you can ask Cooper. I would literally dance around my room for hours. I do that.
Oh,
I promise. I'll send you a
Yes.
video.
Yep.
But no, my favorite song by you all time has to be Matt 723. I when I was in college, next to my apartment there's this lake around it. And I used to listen to that song on repeat while walking around the lake, just thinking about life. Like the song, like the lyrics are so just amazing, and then the sound is fantastic. It's like everything I love about a song in one song. And I feel like the topic about it was like assurance of faith, right? And I feel like that's not talked about a lot within CHH musically, at least. So, can you tell me a little bit more about this song? And then, has assurance been something you've always struggled with?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, that verse is like one of the more terrifying verses like in all of the New Testament, because it really kind of challenges, especially so, I mean, if you're a Protestant American that has grown up in kind of an evangelical culture, there's like this mantra of like once saved always saved. And um that verse is always just very hard for that tension. It creates tension with that sentiment, and it doesn't help when you start to like expand your theological understanding, and you see that there's like significant parts of the world that practice Christianity that believe very different things about the nature of salvation and assurance and all of that. I mean, like Coptic Christians, for example, very much disagree with this whole like evangelical notion of like once saved, always saved. So I don't know. I think that there are some things in scripture that might be there to just create tension, to prevent you from getting too dogmatic in a particular doctrine. And to be honest, I still have trouble with verses like that, but it's like, no matter what your doctrinal tradition are, there are verses that will give you trouble in similar ways. So through everything, man, I just encourage everybody to stay grounded and keep Christ in the foresight, and stay encouraged and rest in the truth and the mystery that ultimately, like, we serve a good God, a gracious God, a just God that's made himself available for us. And I believe for those that righteously seek truth, that whatever we find will be sufficient.
Yeah. So you kind of correct me if I kind of misunderstood you a little bit, but would you say that you don't believe the notion of that once saved always saved, or it's just one of those things where you're not sure, sort of thing?
I'm a little bit agnostic on a lot of that stuff at this point, man. Like there's I think there's good evidence for that. There's a good counter evidence for it. I'm not super sure on the limits and the technicalities with all of that, but what I am sure is Jesus. So I just want to draw into that, and just to continue to have like a humble and open-minded perspective on something that, especially their issues that, like I said, man, like they're very long-standing global traditions throughout the church that come to different conclusions about some of these things. So I think it's okay to have a developing opinion on certain things, and just stay faithful to Christ, man.
Right, I agree. I agree 100% with what you said about like it's okay to have a developing understanding. I think it's Lecrae that says it. Maybe got it from someone else, but like no one's above learning, right? So like you always want to be learning.
Right.
And I can respect that a lot. And you said something about Coptic Christians. Did I get that right?
Coptic.
Coptic. I'm not sure what
So
that is.
Coptic Christianity was, yeah, it was formed generally in the Middle East and Egypt. You'll find people in the Middle East, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, Libya. It's almost like a type of Catholicism ish, but it follows a different tradition. The Coptic Church was actually founded by the Apostle Mark,
Hmm.
and and I just brought them up because like they're a very, in my opinion, I think that Coptic Christianity to a fault kind of ends up becoming a little bit works based, but that's just an example of like, there are like millions of like very devout Christians throughout the world that very much disagree with this North American like evangelical interpretation of that aspect.
So is like the interpretation that, and maybe you don't know, but is the interpretation that salvation, like once saved, always saved, that is that a North American idea, or was that something grounded before?
It's not just like, there's plenty of scripture that idea is backed on,
Right.
but it's just, I think that in our particular culture, and especially like in evangelical culture, sometimes we tend to like put like nobody can like pluck you from the father's hand. That's like a verse that's like very heavily reinforced in like evangelical culture. But then like there are other verses that like we don't know what to like. There are other verses that different doctrines that will kind of hold as like, wait, this is the important one. And I think something where I've been growing is honestly just trying to take all these ideas in scripture and not downplay any of them. And if that means just kind of being agnostic about certain things and holding them in tension, I would rather do that than throw out other things that are or could be useful, and that are in there for a reason.
Right. I like what you said a lot. Like no scripture should be less important than another, sort of thing. Like, um, yeah, that's good what you just said. And do you think when someone is struggling with the fact if they're saved or not, or whether, I guess in this case, maybe more like if God loves them, whatever it may be, do you think
Mm.
the church, specifically the North American evangelical church, responds well to that?
Um, Man, I think that's a big blanket. That's a big tent, and because I think there's a lot of really great things and great churches and great movements within that tradition, and there's also a lot of toxicity, um, and I think that's true for the church everywhere. I think that
Right.
there are useful things with even Catholicism. There's a lot of error in Catholicism as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's very broad and maybe too broad to answer without looking at specifics. But um, ultimately, man, to that question of that question of assurance, or like wondering about like, am I enough? I think that it's important to keep the main things, and that's why I just at this point where I'm at, I really want people to just stress and focus and meditate on God's goodness, on God's love, on the fact that God literally became a man, literally like sacrificed himself through us, literally just took everything for us while knowing everything that we would do despite it, like really just breaking down to the fundamentals. And personally, I think that if we keep on those fundamentals, we'll be all right. Especially when you look at the early church, like the early church for the first couple hundred years didn't even really have scripture. They like didn't have the New Testament, but they had the fundamentals, and that was enough. So, um, so yeah, I think just stay humble and focus on the main things.
Right. There's certain things that we can't dispute, like you said, God's goodness or Jesus coming
Mm.
down for us. And like those are the really important things. I agree with what you just said. And then kind of moving on into away from the whole assurance thing is a while back, like in 2019, you had an interview with Track Stars that I was a huge fan
Mm.
of. And you said you were toying with a model that allows fans to invest and own my music. is that something you're still playing with, and how has it evolved since?
Yeah, so actually so I did like kind of a test case where I was able to um basically sell percentage points of a couple of my songs to small investors. So, to give an example, for like $100, you could own 1% of one of my songs, almost like a stock. And then
Mm-hmm.
every quarter that stock generates dividends in the form of royalties. So basically the idea was when people sign to a label, generally what they will do is they'll sell like 85% of their next 10 or 20 or 30 master recordings, and they'll sell all of that for maybe like $30,000 up front. But the idea is, well, like, actually, if you just went direct to fan and kind of crowdfunded a label idea, it's a lot more efficient for the artists, and it actually gives the people that really support you the most kind of skin in the game, and a means to actually like become incorporated with the artists that they care about. So it actually worked really well. Right now I'm working on a process where I can automate it, because like right now it's a pretty work heavy process. I have this big stupid Excel sheet, and I have like the royalties that are come out, and then like all the people that own these percentages of all these different songs. So I got to like do all this math every time, and then I got to PayPal people or Cash App people a little bit of money. So really, it's enough work that if I did it with like all of my songs, I would just drown in the work, and it would just like not even be worth it. So I'm just trying to find a way where I can automate that process and get some software behind it.
No, that's super dope. So, kind of what caught my attention, just naturally. So you're trying to find a way to automate it. Do you code at all?
I do a little bit. I know enough coding to know how complicated or not complicated some things are, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But
Right.
I'm nowhere near good enough to actually bring my ideas to any type of like working back end model.
Gotcha. No,
And
that
then
just
even with the coding itself on some of this is actually pretty simple, but then it's the legality of anytime you're dealing with stuff that involves finances, you have very specific sets of laws and regulations that you have to adhere to, and that means lawyers, and it gets very expensive very quick. So I'm trying to find a way where I can kind of create a platform from it, but it's a lot of work.
yeah. That no, that creating that platform would be super cool, and it's just like it's such a unique idea. I've never heard anything like it ever. But no, that caught my attention because I'm a software engineer, so I was like, ooh, platform code. You know what I mean? But no,
Interesting.
you
What languages do you code in?
at work I mainly use Ruby. I don't know. It's a lot. It's kind of like
Okay.
Python a little bit, which you probably heard of
Okay.
Python. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like it's just such a unique idea because if I was to buy part of your music, that would make me not like financially invested, but like also just more invested in you and your music, and like
Right.
I want to tell all my friends about your songs more than I already do. Be like, I own like 1% of the song. Hear this, you know what I mean? So like, I feel like
Right.
it's like cool marketing too. Like it's just I don't know. I've never
Well,
heard of anything
you could
like it.
imagine how powerful that could be if you had a couple thousand people that just owned little fractions of all these songs, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be it. If you had this support network to do that on the artist side, that would give them enough capital up front to where it would be much, much, much more advantageous than like a major label deal. But then you would have this organic grassroots of people that actually have skin in your game,
Hmm.
that support the music passionately enough to be like, yo, like if this person does well, I want to do well from it too, so I think it has the potential to be very powerful. But we'll see where it all ends up.
No, yeah. I hope it ends up great. And can kind of continue on the brand thing.
Hmm.
COVID has kind of affected everybody. How has it affected your brand, and also how do you think it's affected like CHH as a whole? I mean, that part's kind of broad, but
Yeah, it's been a bummer, man. Thankfully, I think that I think this fall, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're looking at the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would have thought, a year ago that we would have been over it by now, but so I'm trying not to get my hopes up. But for example, when I put out "Sad People Made Dope Music" too, I had a bunch of music videos that I wanted to do, and all of it all of the people that I was planned on doing videos with were like out of state and stuff, and because of all the restrictions and just people's different risk tolerances and stuff, like I basically wasn't able to do any videos for the project. And I mean, that hurt. Like I had a lot of really cool ideas that I wanted to act on and just weren't able to do it. So I think I'll still end up trying to do some of them in the future. Shows are a big part, but I mean, even just like social isolation is difficult, and I think a lot of people, it highlights how important community is towards everything, and as an artist how important community is for being in the right headspace to even healthily create. So yeah, man, the quicker we can get over this, the better off everybody will be.
Right. No, yeah, I think what you said about like the social thing is really good because like it just kind of it drags down on you a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it kind of moving into a different topic, kind of just more into music, your own general music is when you first started in CHH, did you feel accepted? And then now after you change into this rap rock blend, do you feel accepted by CHH now? Less, more, same?
So, I think when I very first started making music, it definitely it was hardest at the beginning just because everything was just like starting from scratch, and really like me and No Big Deal started making music like in CHH at the same time, and every little thing, every little connection, every person that was willing to work with us or hear us out just like felt like such a major victory. And it ultimately, I mean, it's been a pretty encouraging several years of just seeing everything grow, and then kind of taking a step back in hindsight and then being like, oh wow, man, this is a couple years ago this would have felt like a really big deal type thing. When I kind of switched some of my direction, it was a little bit different because on one side, there's like a type of song that CHH really, really appreciates and it kind of goes hard for. And generally, I mean, it tends to be, to simplify everything, like a generic trap song with like a general message that kind of affirms like Christian values, but it's also like kind of just a sentiment people can get behind. So I mean, I think one of the things that Christian hip hop does like kind of to death will make songs about like work ethic and stuff like that that kind of translate on a general market thing, but then people get hyped to a youth group. So like there are certain songs that you can do to just be very uh that just do well within our space. And I kind of lost all of that when I started doing the melodic, more like emo or the more rap stuff. So and that's something I'm still kind of getting used to. But on the other hand, because nobody was really doing that in our space, like I think the people that did decide to stick around with me and listen to my music, um, I think there's like a level of like bond between that's stronger, and it really feels like when people support me, it's like okay, like we're actually like a micro tribe of like people, and this is like it feels fulfilling in that sense. And artistically, it's like not everybody likes it, but most people do respect it. So that's cool too.
Yeah, that makes sense. You said you and No Big Deal kind of started making music at the same time. I know you guys both started the tribe together.
Yeah.
Did you know him before CHH, like as a personal friend?
Well, so we had both been making music for a while, and it was a situation where like we've had like lots of things we've tried and failed. So Dylan is No Big Deal's real name, government name,
Mm-hmm.
but he actually had a folk band at one point. Like he used to play the banjo, like it was crazy.
Hey,
But we actually we went to MTSU together as a college and outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I don't know, we just kind of met each other at a time that both of us were kind of getting stuff ready to go and like trying to like figure out a plan on how to like attack this music thing, and we just met each other at a time that we were kind of the only people that we knew that had like a similar vision for like what we wanted to do and how we wanted to incorporate our faith into our artistry. um so yeah, it was a very natural friendship, and we've just been working with each other and feeding and growing ever since.
Oh yeah, that's dope. So over the years, you've released some, like I feel like you kind of made almost a career on releasing vulnerable tracks. Um, which
Mm.
song for you was the hardest to release, and then kind of like a little bit about that song.
Mm. Oof. I think some of the probably the most vulnerable song I've done was probably called Honest Conversations.
Mm.
Uh, it was on my Let's Talk About Our Feelings album, and it's vulnerable in a performance aspect because it's just like me and a guitar, and especially I wasn't very like confident in my voice at that time, but also just because like Matthew 7:23 is a really vulnerable one too, though, because like I actually, both of those songs, they're vulnerable on on the basis of like talking, like making public, private insecurities about my faith, about my relationship with God, and so it's actually just kind of weird because like when people that know me hear that song, then it's like, oh, like I didn't know you were going through this, or I didn't know that. It's actually not that hard to like share it with people I don't know online, but to have other people that I do know hear that side of me that I just hadn't shared with them is kind of nerve wracking. But yeah, I think it's all worth it. I think that those songs, and even some of the songs on Tumultu, like Devil in My DM, talking about like lust and like all that type of stuff, it's worth it because people are going through it, and um yeah, it's beneficial for everybody involved, I think.
That's it's really funny that I bring up honest conversations because I was listening through all your music today, and I was like, I've been sleeping on this track. Like I had heard it plenty of times before because I like your Let's Talk About Our Feelings album, but I was like, I don't know where I was before in this track. Like I love this track, so it's just kind of funny. And also, Devil in My DM was the
Oh,
first song I heard about from you actually. So funny that you
oh,
brought those two
interesting.
songs up. Um, but yeah, I really like what you said about it's easy to release music to people you don't know, but the hard thing is like to people that you know, right? So like that would to
Yeah.
me, I've always thought would be the hardest part of being an artist is like there's no way I could show I don't know my family or my friends like this music I made or like even with like this podcast like it's just like it's
Well,
embarrassing
yeah,
almost
and
to show
imagine if
people.
you're if you're like basically like it's exposing thoughts about people in your music that you haven't even communicated to them. So then they hear it and it's like, oh, either you're lying or we have some unresolved issues to take care of, you know? So
Right.
I'm not into the whole like lying in my music thing, so that can make for some nervous moments. But even that though, like once you just get it out in the table, I think just honesty builds deep relationships. So
For sure. Yeah.
sometimes the music just forces my hand in that.
Right, right. I mean, you don't got to answer this if it's too personal or something, but I mean, you've made a lot of music about exes. Has that ever caused some like drama between people you know or something?
It has a little bit, just in the context of like, I think if somebody dates me, they're like, well, if we break up, I know it's coming. you know
Right.
but actually, no, it's dope. I'm in a great relationship now. I'm very happy, and um one, I feel like I have enough um I've suffered enough emotional torment in my life. I can just write infinite songs about it. So I don't need to go through I don't need any more ammunition. I can just draw. I have a stockpile, dude. I have a doomsday bunker of heartbreak ammunition. Um, but really, I'm hopeful and I'm excited to just embrace some new creative disciplines and try to explore different emotions and different sides of my life to draw inspiration from. So, hope someday we'll get a happy song.
Someday. Oh man, I'm glad to hear that you're in a good relationship. That's super happy. That's awesome. And something I've wondered and honestly, part of the reason why I first listened to your music was your name. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
so curious, what is Mogli the Iceberg? Like, where did that come from?
Well, let me ask you first. What do you think it means?
Hmm. Well, I need to figure out what Mowgli means, and then the iceberg is like, I don't know, because iceberg is also spelled. I have no idea. I'm stumped. Cooper, you got anything?
Okay. So when I was in middle school, I used to like go to these sports camps and stuff, and um, one kid was just like, "Hey, he looks like Mowgli from the Jungle Book," and I was like I was very lanky, and I had a deep dark tan. It was the middle of summer, and I had like just this big shaggy head of black hair, and I looked like Mowgli from the Jungle Book, and I guess everybody at school and all my friends were just like, that is a super accurate nickname, and it just stuck with me. Um, and then so the iceberg part comes from my last name. My last name is Hornberg, and I played basketball in high school, and we all had these like stupid nicknames, and people just called me Iceberg, which is why it's spelled differently, right?
Mm.
So when I started making music in high school, I had these two nicknames, and I just put them together. And one of the big rappers at the time, it was like 2008 or 2009, and there was this rapper named OJ the Juice Man from Atlanta, and uh, I was just like, oh, that's a format. I'll just do that. I'll just be something, the something, and bada bing, bada boom, here we are.
Man, I love that. That's perfect. I was expecting you to go deep into meaning of like iceberg is like, like you this is what you see and then on
Not
the
at all.
bottom, this is what it really is.
Not at all.
It's just iceberg. No, that's dope. Actually I was telling one of my friends, we're freaking out to one of my friends about how we got an interview with you, and the only question he wanted me to ask you, and it's funny you bring up your hair, is why did you cut your hair?
Man, so really it's much less of a poetic reason than I'm sure he's looking for, but because I'm a cheapskate, I cut my own hair, and so I was doing like the thing where I like shave the sides, and I had like an Aztec top knot. Well, okay, so I have this like three-way mirror in my bathroom, and like every so often I would just trim it, but there's this line, right? You want to have like a nice sharp line where it's like buzzed and where it's long. And when I would trim it, a lot of times I would trim it just a little bit farther back. So after so I just keep pushing these lines a little bit closer together. So after like a couple of years, essentially I came to the realization that I just had a long mohawk that like wasn't spiky. So I was like, man, I mean, the sides are already shaved, so I'm gonna just knock it all off. And now that it's short, I'm gonna just have fun, and I'm gonna diet, and I'm gonna do different stupid things because I have nothing invested into this. I can make this look terrible, and if it looks terrible, I can just cut it, and it'll be back in like 2 weeks. So that's not the same when you've been growing your hair out for like a couple years. So I'll probably do the long hair again at some point, but uh, for now, I'm just gonna have fun and not have to worry about my hair drying after the shower.
No, man, not drying after the shower, man. Man, I used to hate my hair as a kid, so I would cut it all off. That's the one thing I miss
uh,
about having like a buzz cut. Is like I would get out of the shower and two
yeah,
seconds
dude,
later
no,
it
it's
was
a
gone.
different game.
Right.
My hair was long too. It was probably like down to here or something. Like it was like
Dang.
I had like full on female hair issues. Like I empathize when girls are like, I don't know, I washed my hair yesterday. Like, no, I get it. I get it. But
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's funny. That's funny. you said you dye in your hair. I really like your dye right now, but I expect to see a pink Mowgli in the next
Oh, it's coming.
music video.
It's coming. We're gonna do
Oh.
pink. We're gonna do green. We're gonna probably do red too.
Ooh,
I'm just gonna have fun, man.
coat of many colors or hair of many colors, you know. No, but I don't want. I think we're nearing the end of the time, so
Okay.
I had one more question. Cooper and I like to save the most important question for last. We never tell
Okay.
the artist what it is because it's just important. Between you and No Big Deal, who could eat more Dino chicken nuggets in one sitting?
Ooh. So that really depends on who is being stricter with their diet, because it could go either way. Because Dylan just very disciplined with certain types of thing. Right now, I'm trying to slim down after Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that eggnog. So I think he would probably eat more of them than I would. Just because I think hopefully I would have the fortitude to just decline it. But last night we were in a similar situation and I caved to the Chick-fil-A when he did. So it's a
That's
toss-up.
Man, that's funny. That's funny. But how many can you eat though in one sitting? Do you think 20, 25, 50?
Can I? Do I have the capacity to? Bro, I could eat 50. I'm sure. I'm sure of it.
Okay.
One
Alright.
sitting, 50. No
Okay.
problem. No problem. I'm not even regretting it the next day.
Oh
Big
man,
guy, I'm a big boy.
I love it. Now my friend ate 63 pizza rolls in one sitting, and that
Shoot.
that messed him up for a bit.
I went to a sushi buffet with one of my best friends, and between the two of us, we ate over 200 pieces of sushi. And I didn't want to eat again for like 3 days.
Dang, 200 pieces. That's crazy. I can't even eat one piece of sushi.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rice.
Man,
Expensive too.
I forgot
It was
about
an
one last.
all-you-could-eat buffet. It was an all-you-could-eat sushi train.
Oh, okay.
You gotta get your money's worth, right? You gotta make sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So the philosophy was every plate that you get, your meal is cheaper, right?
Right. Okay. Final question. I realized I lied about the final question. My bad. I forgot to ask one. If you were the interviewer and you're my shoes, what would you have asked that I did not ask?
Oh shoot! Dang, that's a hard freaking question. You didn't ask me what my favorite color was. Ha!
Oh, what is it? Oh wait, black on black. My bad. My bad. I was just listening to that. I was singing that song before you came on. That's
But if
cheating.
it wasn't black, it would be indigo.
I'm just. What?
Okay.
Indigo specifically, not purple.
Nice, nice. I love how specific that is. But no, thank you so much for coming on the show. It
Yes.
means a lot to us. And thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to check out Mogli. Where can we find you on socials, by the way?
MOGLITHEICEBURG on all platforms. Guarantee you I'm the only one.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I guess there's probably not very many of those. Yeah, be sure to check out his music. You won't regret it. As well as follow us on our socials at CHHysteria on Instagram. That's where we're most active. We also got a Twitter at CHHysteria Media. And lastly, if you love CHH or if you're an artist and you're looking to connect with other CHH heads, there's a CHH Discord, has over 250 members, super active. Be sure to join.
Yeah.
You should join Mogli. I'll freak out. Anyways.
I will.
Oh, I'm going to hold you to that. Anyways, thank you all for coming in. Until next time.